He was the man everyone in the city feared. Adrian Cole, the billionaire architect who built skyscrapers higher than dreams and colder than his heart. After losing the woman he loved, he buried himself in glass and steel, convincing himself that emotions were weaknesses he could design out of his life. But fate had other plans. One rainy evening, while signing a hospital construction deal, a tiny voice stopped him in the corridor. "Mister, can you help me find my mom?" The little girl's frail hand, her brave smile, and her familiar eyes froze him in place. Those eyes. He'd seen them before in the only woman he'd ever loved. And in that moment, Adrian realized that no tower, no empire, could compare to the fragile heartbeat standing before him. Because she wasn't just a child, she was his. Adrian Cole was a name that opened doors and closed hearts. In the city skyline, his towers were monuments to his ambition, sleek spires of steel and glass that touched the clouds and mocked the ground that raised him. But behind the shimmering windows lay a truth he never shared. Every building was a way to forget her. 2 years ago, he'd lost Isabel Reed, the only woman who saw the man beneath the empire. One moment of fear and arrogance had ended everything. She wanted love. He gave her schedules. She wanted a family. He gave her contracts. When she walked out, she took his peace with her. Now, his world was meetings, deadlines, and a penthouse too quiet to be called home. He designed for millions but belonged to no one. That evening, rain hammered against the windows of St. Matthew's Children's Hospital. Adrian was there to finalize a new wing, his company's latest charity project. He signed papers without reading them, already thinking about the next skyscraper. To him, the hospital was just another project until he heard a soft voice. "Mister, can you help me?" He looked down. A little girl, maybe 5 or 6, stood in a hospital gown, barefoot and clutching a stuffed bunny. Her hair was chestnut brown, her eyes a startling shade of gray, the same color as his own. "I can't find my mom," she whispered. Something inside him stirred. He knelt down slowly. "What's your name?" "Lily," she said with a tiny smile. He smiled back awkwardly. He hadn't smiled in months. He was about to call a nurse when Lily grabbed his hand. Her small fingers wrapped around his own, and for reasons he couldn't explain, he froze. "You look like the man in Mommy's picture," she said. Adrian's heart skipped. "What picture?" Before he could ask more, a nurse rushed in, relieved. "There you are, sweetheart. Your mom has been worried sick." The nurse took Lily's hand and led her down the hall. Adrian watched them go, uneasy. Those eyes, those words. He tried to shake it off, but his signature on the contract looked blurred. He couldn't focus. The next day, he returned to the hospital under the pretense of reviewing design plans, but in truth, he wanted to see her again. He found Lily in the garden outside, drawing flowers with crayons. Her bunny sat beside her on the bench. "Hi again," Adrian said. Lily looked up and grinned. "You're the tower man." He chuckled. "I guess I am. Mommy says you build things that touch the sky." He sat down next to her. "Your mom knows me." Lily nodded, coloring a blue heart. "She used to." The words landed like thunder. He stared at the little girl's face, and suddenly he was afraid of the answer to a question he hadn't even asked. "What's your mom's name, Lily?" She looked up, innocent. "Isabel Reed." The crayon fell from his hand. That night, Adrian stood in his office on the top floor of the Cole Tower. The city glowed below, but for the first time, he felt the weight of every light. Each one belonged to someone who had a home to go back to. He had none. He remembered Isabel, her laughter, her fire, her dreams of a small house with a garden. He'd called those dreams too small for a man like him. Now they felt bigger than all his towers combined. Was Lily really his? He needed to know. The next morning, he returned to the hospital early. He found Isabel outside Lily's room, her back to him. Even from behind, he recognized her. The same brown hair, the same grace in the way she stood. Isabel. She turned slowly, and for a moment, the world stopped. Her eyes widened. "Adrian." He swallowed hard. "It's been a long time." She nodded, guarded. "What are you doing here?" I could ask the same. Her jaw tightened. "I work here. I'm a pediatric architect assistant. It's my job to help design spaces for children." "Your project," ironically, he almost laughed at the cruelty of fate. "I didn't know." "Of course you didn't," she said coldly. "You never looked back." He glanced at Lily through the glass. The child was laughing with a nurse, hugging her bunny. He lowered his voice. "Is she mine?" Isabel's face went still. A tear slipped down her cheek before she could hide it. She has your eyes, she whispered. But you gave up the right to ask. And with that, she walked away. Adrian stood frozen, watching his reflection in the glass, a man surrounded by the world he built. Finally realizing he'd forgotten how to live in it, Adrian Cole didn't sleep that night. He sat in his penthouse office, staring at the skyline, the towers he built piercing the night sky like reminders of everything he'd done right, and everything he'd done wrong. He had spent his life building things that reached for the heavens, but somewhere along the way, he'd lost his heart on the ground. Now that heart had a name, Lily. The next morning, Adrian arrived at the hospital again, this time with a bouquet of white lilies and a lunchbox shaped like a bunny. The receptionist smiled politely but suspiciously. Visiting hours start in 20 minutes. I'm not visiting, he said. I'm here to fix a mistake. When Isabel saw him walking toward Lily's room, she froze midst. He held out the flowers awkwardly. For Lily, not for you, though maybe you deserve them too. Isabel crossed her arms. You don't get to do this, Adrian. You can't walk in and pretend. He cut her off softly. I'm not pretending. I just want to know her. She hesitated, her anger battling with exhaustion. Lily's laughter echoed from inside the room. The sound cracked something open in both of them. After a long silence, Isabel sighed. You can stay for 10 minutes. It was more than he deserved. Lily's face lit up when she saw him. Tower man, she giggled. He smiled. Hi, Lily, I brought something. Her eyes widened at the bunny lunchbox. You remembered. He blinked. Remembered? She nodded proudly. I told you yesterday I like bunnies more than dolls. You listened. He hadn't realized it then, but he had. For the next 10 minutes, Adrian watched her draw, laugh, and talk about everything under the sun. He noticed how she held her crayons too tight, the little scar near her wrist, the way her nose crinkled when she smiled, all the details a father should have known years ago. When his time was up, Isabel appeared in the doorway. That's enough for today. Lily pouted. Can Towerman come again tomorrow? Adrian looked at Isabel, hopeful. Her lips pressed together, but she nodded once. Tomorrow. Over the next few weeks, tomorrow turned into a routine. Adrian visited every day, sometimes with books, sometimes with new designs for Lily's dream room. He told her stories about his buildings, about how every tower starts as a small sketch. She told him stories about her stuffed bunny, about the nurse who gave her extra pudding cups, and slowly, Isabel watched from the background, torn between disbelief and something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. One afternoon, Lily was asleep after a minor surgery. Adrian found Isabel in the hospital garden, sitting on a bench with her coffee untouched. He approached quietly. She's strong, like her mother. Isabel didn't look at him. She had to be. He sat beside her. Why didn't you tell me? Her jaw clenched. Because when I told you I wanted a family, you said you wanted a legacy. You made it clear I didn't fit into your world. He flinched. I was wrong. She looked at him then, her eyes tired but sharp. You don't get to fix everything by admitting it. I know. He took a breath. But maybe I can start by being there for her. Isabel studied him for a long moment. And what happens when your next tower breaks ground? When your world gets busy again? Adrian's voice softened. Then I'll bring her with me. I'll build around her. For the first time, Isabel's lips curved into a small, almost invisible smile. You can't build love like concrete, Adrian. Maybe not, he said, but I can learn. The following week, Lily was discharged. Adrian offered to drive them home, but Isabel refused until Lily looked up at her with pleading eyes. Please, Mommy, Towerman drives the biggest cars. Isabel groaned softly. Fine, just this once. The drive was silent at first, the kind of silence filled with old memories and new possibilities. Lily hummed in the back seat, hugging her bunny. When they reached Isabel's small apartment, Adrian got out and helped carry her things. The place was neat but worn, a far cry from the luxury he lived in. Nice place, he said gently. She smirked. Don't lie, you live above the clouds. I used to, he murmured. Now I'm learning to stay on the ground. Their eyes met, and for a second, the years between them disappeared. That evening, he sat beside Lily on the couch as she showed him her drawings. This one's our house, she said proudly, pointing to a crayon sketch of 3 stick figures holding hands. He smiled. Who's that? That's me, Mommy. And, she paused, looking up shyly. You. The crayon slipped from his hand again, just like that first day. Isabel stood in the kitchen doorway, watching. There was no anger left in her eyes, only quiet confusion. He didn't notice. His world had already changed. When he left that night, he lingered at the door. Can I come by tomorrow? he asked softly. Isabel hesitated, then nodded. Tomorrow, but tomorrow didn't come easily. The next morning, a breaking news alert hit every channel. Cole Enterprises under investigation for structural corruption. Adrian's empire trembled overnight. Competitors attacked, investors fled, and the man who built towers suddenly found himself standing in ruins. Yet, as chaos consumed his company, all he could think about was one thing. Would Isabel believe he hadn't changed after all? And would he lose Lily before he ever got the chance to be her father? The headlines were merciless. Cole Enterprises faces collapse. City icon under investigation. For the first time in 15 years, Adrian Cole wasn't the man with all the answers. He sat in his office, surrounded by models of unfinished skyscrapers, hollow dreams of glass and steel that suddenly felt meaningless. His assistant stood in the doorway. Sir, investors are demanding a statement. If you don't go public, Adrian raised a hand. Tell them, I'll handle it. When she left, he turned his gaze toward the window. Rain streaked down the glass, the same storm that had brought Lily into his life weeks ago. He realized something then. The towers he built might fall, but maybe that was what needed to happen. That evening, Isabel's phone buzzed. Adrian, I need to see you. Please, she hesitated, then typed back. Isabel, is this about the company or about Lily? His reply came instantly. Adrian, about both. About us. Something in those words, not pride, not control, just honesty, made her agree. They met at the half-finished hospital tower. Adrian had been designing before everything went wrong. The construction site was silent except for the echo of raindrops on steel beams. She arrived wearing a coat and holding an umbrella, her expression unreadable. You shouldn't be here, she said softly. Reporters will eat you alive if they find out. I don't care, Adrian replied. I built this place to save lives, but somewhere along the way, I forgot what life meant. He looked around at the skeleton of the hospital beams, scaffolding, foundations. This was supposed to be my masterpiece, but all I want now is to finish it for her? Isabel frowned. For Lily? He nodded. She deserves a world that doesn't break when people make mistakes. There was silence, heavy, emotional, real, and then she said the words that cut him deeper than any headline. She asked me last night why you weren't coming. I didn't know what to say. Adrian closed his eyes. Tell her I was scared, not of losing my company, of losing her. A few weeks passed. The investigation turned out to be an internal betrayal, a partner who'd falsified contracts. Adrian was cleared, but the damage was done. Investors were gone. Projects, frozen. He had two choices, rebuild the empire or rebuild his life. He chose the latter. One quiet Sunday, Isabel opened her apartment door to find Adrian standing there with paint on his hands and a shy smile. What happened to you? She asked. He lifted a small wooden house model. I've been building something new. She raised an eyebrow. Another tower? He shook his head. No. A playground. For the hospital kids. Lily helped me design it. From behind his legs, Lily peeked out, grinning. Mommy, I helped Daddy paint the slide. The word Daddy hung in the air like a fragile miracle. Adrian froze, his eyes glistened, and Isabel's breath caught. Lily giggled. You okay, Daddy? He knelt, pulling her into his arms. I've never been better, sweetheart. That evening, after Lily fell asleep, Adrian and Isabel sat on the couch, the city lights flickering outside. I don't know what this means, she whispered. You, me, her, we've both changed. I don't want to promise perfection, Adrian said softly. I just want to promise presence. She turned to face him. You used to talk like a man building the world. Now you sound like a man rebuilding himself. He smiled faintly. Maybe that's what love does, it makes you tear down the wrong towers. There was silence, filled only by the hum of the city below. Then Isabel reached for his hand, slow, hesitant, but real. Months later, the new Lily's Hope Children's Wing opened inside the same hospital where she once wore that little gown. Adrian stood beside Isabel and Lily as the ribbon was cut. Reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. But for the first time, Adrian didn't look at the lenses, he looked only at them. Lily tugged at his sleeve. Daddy, are you happy now? He smiled. I think I finally know what happiness feels like. That night, as they stood watching the city skyline from the hospital rooftop, Isabel leaned against him. Do you ever miss it? She asked. The old life. He shook his head. Not when this one's waiting at home. The towers of glass still glittered in the distance, his past achievements shining coldly under the stars. But now, beside him, Warm little hands and a gentle heart reminded him that the greatest thing he ever built wasn't made of steel, but of love.